Let me introduce you our next speaker, who is Tamara Helenius, program manager partner at Common Stack. And Tamara would be speaking about the commons are coming. Is it correct?
Yeah, you got it right. The commons are coming. Ominous, but the opposite in a good way.
Great.
Okay.
And I have already gave you co-host rights, so you should now be able to share your screen. So Tamara, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So that should be good. Cool. So I think I'm live. So thanks for introducing me, Ross. Also, thanks for inviting me to speak today. There's a few things I like more than talking about Commons and, of course, Common Stack. So I'm the managing director at Common Stack. I've been with the group for 2.5 years, and we're doing some really cool cutting edge stuff. I'm excited to talk to you guys about it today. And I hope at the end of these 20 minutes, you'll understand what I mean when we're talking about a Commons DAO. Is a unique kind of DAO, very different than other DAOs, and how it enables any group to launch their own token economy to support a public good or a common good. So I really, got it, good. So I really give it all away in the title, don't I? The commons are coming. So there's not so many people in the Zoom, but I think there's some live streams. So if you're sitting watching a live stream, just raise your hands to yourself if you feel satisfied with the world today. We face a lot of real problems, right? And some of the problems are fatal for human life on Earth. So I'm going to be blunt here. Whoops, hold on. Markets are failing us. These images are from 250 years apart, but they have something really important in common, and that commonality is called enclosures. The Enclosure Act of 1773 in England was a law that enabled the enclosure of land. Basically, that just means removing the right of commoners' access. So nobles, empowered by the king, claimed land and made it private. They profited from hunting and extracting resources like water and fresh water and wood. And of course, all the game that was in the forests. But before the enclosure, this land provided important resources for local villagers: wood for fires and home building, areas for agriculture, game, meat. Okay, so that was 250 years ago. Fast forward to basically now. On the right is the San Bernardino National Forest in California. Some facts: in 1865, Nestle had permission from the United States Forest Service to bottle water from a creek in San Bernardino. That's 158 years ago. The US Forest Service does not monitor Nestle's water extraction. And a recent study by California regulators concluded that Nestle was extracting 25 times more than legally allowed. But why was it even legally allowed? Nestle pays the US Forest Service $624 a year. Nestle Water's worldwide revenue is about $8 billion a year. This is what a modern enclosure looks like: the expropriation and commercialization of common resources, almost always in collusion with the government. So here's a famous protest poem from that time. It's really cute. I'll give you a moment to read it. And I'm sharing it to highlight that the enclosures of commons actually didn't go without protest. Note that last line: and geese will still a common lack till they go and steal it back. That's a call to action. This is important because the path taken, the expansion, exploitation, and extraction of our shared resources, that wasn't inevitable, and history could have gone another way. So you know what else is failing us? States are failing us. States enable enclosures and extractive practices. Nestle was enabled by the US government. Nestle could not have done it without them. Markets benefit from governments providing them with free or cheap access to public forests, minerals, airwaves, and other public resources. Let's talk about corporate personhood. So corporate personhood stands in contrast to natural persons, so you or me. Corporate personhoods can outspend, outlobby, and outmaneuver natural persons. Because of this, the interests of corporations supersede the interests of people. And in its current form, representative democracy represents corporations better than people. Let's also talk about financial seizure and exclusion. Now, it's not surprising when authoritarian regimes freeze or seize the assets of their most vocal critics. But it's surprising when Canada does that. Now, financial exclusion gives the state God power over citizens, and for some particularly powerful states, the entire global financial system. Another thing about states, they have a remarkable proclivity for fiscal irresponsibility. Here's the size of each country corresponding to its debt to GDP ratio. Now, basically that just means what a country owes versus what it produces. A high ratio may be at higher risk of defaulting on its debt if it can't generate enough economic growth to pay off its debt, and an indication of the government's overspending or lack of fiscal discipline. It can also put pressure on the government to raise taxes, to cut spending, in order to reduce that burden of debt. So it's not looking very good. The red countries all have ratios above 50%. Markets are failing us, states are failing us, but we have no alternative. We have no choice, right? So words have power. And as soon as I heard the words beyond market and state, they cast a spell over me. The first time I heard it, I was like, wait, we can do that? That there's something beyond the duopoly of markets and states? And that realization felt to me like the first time people learned the earth was round and ships would not simply fall off the end of the world if they went too far. I first came across these words in a collection of essays by David Bollier and Silke Helfrich. The Wealth of the Commons, A World Beyond State and Market. Now, David and Silke are two commons academics, activists, and legends. But before them, there was Elinor Ostrom. She published an academic paper titled Beyond Markets and States, Polycentric Governance of Complex Economic Systems. So what are they talking about? This is Elinor Ostrom. Ostrom received the Nobel Prize in Economics, and I quote, for her analysis of economic governance, especially for the commons. What she did was extensive empirical research to prove that humans can cooperate without intervention from private markets or the government. Now think about that for a minute. She won a Nobel Prize for proving humans can cooperate. Before Ostrom, the tragedy of the commons was conventional wisdom, and it remains one of the most durable myths of our times. Ostrom conducted meticulous field research into existing commons. From the mounds of empirical data that she collected, she observed 8 principles that were all present in the sustainable and long-lasting commons. We're talking about commons that have lasted for hundreds of years, in some cases, 1,000+ years. And it's these principles that we use as the foundation for our cultural frameworks of our commons design patterns. But I'll tell you more about that later. So what is a commons? Very simply, a commons is a resource plus a community plus a set of rules. Social protocols for how people conduct themselves in the commons. What happens if somebody violates one of the principles of the commons or one of the rules of the commons? And thanks to the groundbreaking work of Elinor Ostrom, David Bollier, Silke Helfrich, and many others, commons are now being looked at as a viable alternative to capitalism, one which will put human well-being and the planet above financial gain. So let me tell you a little bit about Common Stack. Our goal is to enable communities to design and develop their own microeconomies that reward the creation of public goods and common goods. We created a methodology we call collaborative economics for a collective decision-making. We've designed cultural frameworks based on the principles of governing the commons. We curate a library of tools, some we needed to build ourselves, and we've done a ton of research. In fact, we really started as a think tank. We focused on crypto primitives that could underpin design patterns for a new type of DAO, a commons DAO. We aspire to scale commons as a way to realign incentives with supporting public goods. Now, why would we do something crazy like that? Well, we believe that if supporting public goods were profitable, more people would do it, and we would have more public goods. In order to achieve this commons design patterns, we first needed to elaborate cultural frameworks that reinforce commoning principles within a community. We see the work of Elinor Ostrom as our North Star, and we set out to weave her principles of governing commons into the cultural fabric of a commons DAO. Our cultural build defines practices for clear boundaries, conflict resolution, monitoring, graduated sanctions, participatory decision-making, and all the principles observed by commons and in her masterpiece, Governing the Commons. We also needed to build novel tools, such as the augmented bonding curve, conviction voting, and the praise, reputation, and reward system. A bonding curve is just a mathematical function that describes the relationship between the supply and the price of a token. It's an automatic market maker, and it guarantees liquidity. It's brilliant. It was invented by Simon de la Rouvier, one of our advisors. The augmentation is a design we invented. It pays tributes into a common pool for any mint or burn transaction. And then the community uses that common pool to support their public good or purpose. Conviction voting allows token-weighted real-time preference streaming. So conviction voting grows the longer you stake your tokens on a proposal. This was conceived by Dr. Michael Zargum, also one of our advisors. And praise, it's a community intelligence system that promotes participation and collaboration through peer recognition and rewards. Something that's really, really missing in the Web3 space is how to distribute reputation through experience and labor, and have that reputation be a form of your governance power. So the more that you contribute to a DAO, the more reputation you have, the stronger, the more weight you have in governance of that DAO. So our library of tools support regenerative funding, governance, cultural analytics, and some have come straight out of our research, so we had to develop them ourselves. I'd like to give a shout out to Blossom Labs, with whom we co-developed the augmented bonding curve and conviction voting, especially Sam and Gabby. And a shout out to Token Engineering Commons and General Magic, with whom we co-developed Praise. So these are our stacks. We have a cultural stack, we have a technical stack, and we have this methodology, frameworks, library of tools, and research which undergirds it all. So how does a community who want to launch their own token economy to support a purpose of public good do that? So we have designed this 4-phase deployment process. Each phase has a number of modules, and each of the modules can be done in almost any order. Now, at Common Stack, we're committed to open source. We intend to open source all of these deployment protocols, but first we have to finish documenting and developing some of the white label dashboards so that any community can use the dashboards to design the parameters of their economy. The token engineering community was the first to deploy our Commons design patterns, and their mission is to advance token engineering, a nascent form of engineering. The Token Engineering Commons raised 1.5 million DAI, so US dollar equivalent, from about 300 individuals who were on the allow list for participating in that fundraise. And since the beginning of last year, so for about a year now, has funded over $350,000 worth of TE projects, so token engineering projects, particularly in token engineering public goods, so research, education, and open source systems. We funded the Token Engineering Academy, which is which just launched the first bachelor's level free course in token engineering, so the fundamentals of token engineering, proposal inverter, gravity DAO, consilience library, and a bunch more. But most importantly, the Token Engineering Commons has built a large, active, and engaged community. And that is what commoning is all about. A community stewarding a shared resource under an agreed set of rules. Okay, the last thing I want to tell you about, and I see I'm speeding through this, so I might finish a little early, is what we're doing right now. So we have a grant in this Gitcoin Grants Alpha Round to get an exciting new venture off the ground. It's a joint venture with ReFi DAO. For those of you, I'm going to take a moment and explain Gitcoin. For those of you not familiar with Gitcoin, it's a platform that should probably be on your radar. For those of you familiar with Gitcoin, this, as you know, is a very special round. First, it's their alpha test for their decentralized backend. They're really embracing the decentralized ethos. And I believe it's the first time we're using Gitcoin passports to provide greater Sybil resistance. Like the rounds before, there's quadratic funding. And this time they're allocating $1 million in matching pools to 3 categories: open source, Ethereum infrastructure, and climate solutions. But here's what we want to do. So in collaboration with ReFi DAO, We want to accelerate the growth of regenerative finance, the entire movement, and we want to do it from the bottoms up. So local, regional commons determining what regenerative finance is in their own local region. Who knows better than Bogota, the people on the ground in Bogota, what regenerative finance should look like in Bogota? To do this, we'll pilot a new concept called a refi commons. We'll work together to design the templates, the deployment protocols, and some defaults that any region will be able to then use to launch their own refi commons in their own region. And to support these individual refi commons all over the world, we're building a refi commons incubator. The incubator is going to be the central coordinator and documentation manager for all of these different regenerative finance commons. And to decide which regions are ready, we're launching a refi commons prize, and it'll allow any region to self-nominate. The regions that self-nominate will have to meet or demonstrate that they've met the requirements to be able to launch one of these commons. We are still working on what the requirements will be exactly, but for example, you could imagine it's going to be something like there's 3 to 5 stakeholders. They have something like 7 years commitment to really seeing this initiative through. They're not flying by and just wanting to dabble in Web3 and leave. They're really committed to regenerative finance in that region. They're committed to helping startups grow. The idea is to help these initiatives turn into startups, and have refi ventures would be a venture, more traditional venture arm, part of the refi ecosystem, perhaps even mentor a lot of these initiatives from the ground, from the bottom up. We hope to pilot 3 regions simultaneously, and that means there's 3 chances for any region anywhere in the world to have the chance to launch their own refi commons. So this is, I think I'm sharing this right. So this is the Gitcoin grants round. This is the grant. These are the grants in the climate. This is our grant. And if we raise 75K, we're launching this like tomorrow. We're all really excited about it. So that's the end. Thanks for spending some time with me today. You can reach me on Twitter, it's probably the best way. My DMs are always open, and you can also contact us at Common Stack if you want to reach the whole team. Thanks. I'll stick around if anyone has questions, and then I believe if there are no questions, we'll have another break.
I have 2 questions, if I may.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for this presentation. It's a big honor to be able to talk to someone from Common Stack, for me personally. Yeah, I know I really believe that Commons is like way, and it's like it could be like the solution to many of the problems that we have as a civilization, right? But I'm wondering, like, what do you think would be the best way to make this like mindset shift to make commons like a really like viable alternative to corporations? And what do you think are limitations of commons? Maybe you think that commons, in some like industries or verticals, we shouldn't try to develop commons.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Thanks, Artem. For the mind shift answer, I think it's, I gave a talk in ETH Barcelona, I guess it was last year now, and it was about changing the way we understand what profit means. We think about profit in terms of like what the market will pay for it, right? And as long as we keep thinking of profit in terms of what the market will pay for something, we're going to continually be incentivized to be extractive. And if we start thinking about profit in terms of ecological profit, cultural profit, generational profit, we really expand and start to value things differently. If we're not valuing what the market will pay for, but we're valuing biodiversity, And that's the kind of profit we're seeking. So I think the mind shift is exactly that. It's a mind shift. We have to retrain our brains to think about profit in different ways than we used to. I started the talk with like, okay, so I'm going to say a word, and I want people to shout out the first thing that comes into their mind. And I say the word profit, and everyone's like, I see a stock chart. It's like, of course you do, because we're so programmed to think of profit as monetary. But if we start to think of profit in different ways, we'll start to naturally value things differently. And then the limitation of commons, I think we aspire to have a lot of small commons. I'm not sure commons are like big things, I don't know that they scale so well. So I would say probably scalability is a limitation, but I don't look at that as necessarily a negative thing. One of Eleanor Ostrom's principles, the eighth principle of governing the commons, are these nested enterprises. So, this thing that we're doing with Refi Commons is this joint venture we want to have with them, or we'll have with them, is around having these tiny little commons anywhere in the world, in the regions, and they're all coordinating in this Refi Commons global space, and they're all nested together. And I don't think it would work if it was one big gigantic Refi Commons and thousands of people from all over the world. But I think if it's like local on the ground actions and impact, I think that's probably the way commons are meant to grow. And so, yeah, I think, other than scalability, yeah, I guess that's the first thing that comes to mind.
It's just that, when I talk about commons, people usually think about land or agriculture or, co-living spaces. But I think that commons could actually be feasible in healthcare or education, But that thing is a bit hard to envision, I guess.
Yeah, Eleanor Ostrom's work, she was focused on what we call common pool resources. So she was focused on the things like water, fresh water, unsalinated water, underground water, and irrigation in Spain, and fields in the Alpines. And those common pool resources are natural resources, and I get it, that's one kind of commons, but there's digital commons. It's not there.
Wikipedia is a commons, right?
Wikipedia is a commons, yeah. Wikipedia is it's a knowledge commons. So I think we do now, in fact, all of the academics, all of the commons activists do think of commons in many different ways. Yeah.
Can I ask you one more question? I'm sorry, just really quickly, is it possible to use Common Stack for if someone starts a new community, or it's currently in closed beta or something?
Yeah, well, so we're working with communities now. So the token engineering community was the first community to use our commons design patterns. And it's like jumping out of an airplane and assembling your, your parachute as you're jumping. We were building it as we were launching it. And so we have built a lot of tools custom for token engineering that we're now doing redevelopment to have them white labeled. We have dashboards where the entire community co-designs the augmented bonding curve together, co-designs conviction voting parameters, co-designs Tau voting. And this is sort of a fundamental piece, this idea of collaborative economics, or collectively making decisions about the parameters of our economy. So again, it really is, it has a high fidelity to Eleanor Ostrom's principles, which is the people who are governed by the rules should say what the rules are and be able to change the rules. So the people that are going to be participating in this commons should say what the rules are of the commons, and if they don't like it, should be there is a process built in to be able to change those rules.
So if we have a community about climate change.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I didn't ask.
Can we use it? Yeah. Usually like a waiting list or something.
Yeah, so we're fully committed to open sourcing it. We have a lot of the documentation done. We have a few more pieces of the development done before it's usable, even as a beta for some communities to self-deploy. But we are talking with communities that want to work with Common Stack, work with us. So basically hire us for some period of time, and we will, there's some fees associated with it right now, but we're all committed to taking this learning, using those fees to like do this development, to publish the documentation, to get another commons launched. So we are talking with a few different communities to see which one of those we can do it with.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. And please, if you guys have a community that you think would benefit from launching a tokenized economy to support their public good or purpose, here I am. Come talk to me. I want to talk to you.
So I met Elliot yesterday and he told me about you, of Global Unity. And I already saw your name before. Somebody else mentioned you. We should totally chat, Tamara. I would love to talk.
Yeah. Dean, yeah, cool. I'd love to speak with you too, Dean. Is that the best way you're GaiaNet.earth? Is that the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, that's our website. You can write me on Telegram. That for me works the best. There's my Telegram handle, or write me on Gmail. Whatever
Cool. I look forward to chatting with you.
Me too. Yeah. Love to talk more about that.
What do you guys
You're
think?
on
Any
mute.
more questions?
Oh, Ross is talking.
Oh,
No, Ross is on.
Actually, I was saying exactly the same. Do we have any other questions to Tamara?
I've got a million questions for you, but I don't know which ones I should pop right now. Again, we got time, no?
Yeah, we have 15 minutes.
Yeah, 15
15
minutes.
minutes.
Okay, let's see how I'm gonna pop this question. So many things alive. So maybe you can give an indication, why is the DAO space such a mess in general? And what I mean by that is so many wonderful beings with beautiful intentions, and then let's design the technology that's going to solve all our problems, and they're all presented as the Holy Grail. But when I go more deeply and I investigate different types of DAOs and different communities, it comes down to the same challenge you have in these vertical organizations. There is implicit hierarchies, people trying to take the power, manipulating, and especially the majority voting to get things pushed through, obviously also is an invitation for people to gather forces behind them and get the majority. And the main objection of one person, that's really a gift, because objections are gifts for the evolution of an organization. But they're just like left to the side sometimes. So I'm really curious, like you've been in this space for much long, and the Commons stack really seems to want to resolve these kind of issues, no? Of how can we truly feel that we are all in this together, we're all equally rewarded, we all equally contribute, like the principles of Elinor Ostrom are majestic. Okay, I have some more sub-questions. I hope it's not too confusing, but can you tell me why it's a bit messy in these DAOs? And we see a lot of the same as the old world problems in something that everybody, wow, let's get decentralized, but they don't seem to make it. And many projects still fail because of that, because the conflict between people.
Well, so you just nailed it. Humans are involved. Like, where humans are involved, there's conflict, right? So I just took some notes because that was long, but I'm going to try to hit all your points. So I think fundamentally there is, like, Common Stack is really focused on building the culture of really taking these principles of governing commons and weaving them into the community. So radical inclusion, making sure that everyone has a voice in a call. So everyone goes around and, you know, states their intentions and discharge. We have these rituals, we have these practices. We have, you know, we've designed this specifically so that the people who participate in this, in the DAO, in the commons, feel valued, appreciated. We use praise, so people, you know, are acknowledged by their peers and receive tokens for those acknowledgements. You know, it's, if I were to praise Dean for asking me so many cool questions today, somebody in our community would see that praise. You know, it's just on a channel scrolling through on our Discord server. Somebody then there'd be somebody would quantify that praise. So 3 or 4 people would give that praise a rating, and then at the end of that, you would receive tokens from our community for your contributions to making our community better. So we like intentionally try to find how to create a culture that is warm and welcoming, that is radically open and inclusive, that is, you know, I would say there's a lot of, and I'd say, you know, a lot of the DAOs that have amazing technology, millions of dollars in the treasury, they explode because there's conflict, because humans, right? We're humans, humans are going to be human. And so, you know, their conflict resolution is one of the principles of governing commons, right? So we have a robust conflict resolution system. If somebody has a problem with somebody else, rather than letting it escalate and, you know, sort of fester and rot and explode, there is a group of people who are mediators, who are trained mediators, who will address the conflict, who will set up a mediation to be able to resolve the conflict. There's like, I feel like Common Stack has made a very specific point about developing a culture that's robust and sustainable. We haven't got it perfect. I'm not going to pretend like, you know, we have it perfect. I think everyone is experimenting in this space. DAOs are permissionless, so that's strange, right? How to, you know, I don't know that there's so many permissionless organizations that you've experienced prior to your time in a DAO. That's pretty rare, you know. So praise also is a way for people to get paid for contributions, you know, so it's permissionless. You go, you do something, the community appreciates it, you get tokens. Wow, that was like magic how that happens. And I also think, you know, the idea that DAOs somehow are better than other organizations, you know, it's a new way we have new tools, right? We have crypto economic systems, we can tokenize economies, we can tokenize governance, we can do cool things like quadratic voting, and, you know, we could do conviction voting, osmotic voting, we can do so many new cool things, but it's not political, you know? Politics come into play and it's inevitable. So I think we have to, you know, continue to experiment and continue to figure out how to build more sustainable, robust cultures in DAOs. You know, flat organizations suffer. I come from a very traditional, you know, I have 25 years experience in digital media and technology. I come from this very traditional structure of like hierarchy and I'm the boss, and that works, you know? So now we're going to this like totally flat organizations, and we have to learn how to use things like servant leadership, you know, instead of command and control leadership. So I think it's not everyone is used to, you know, like getting rid of those old habits and those old organizational structures that we've belonged to for so many years. But I think as like people become more familiar with DAO structures and permissionless work and flat hierarchies, and, you know, and just trying to like figuring out how to have more robust cultures that support sustainability, like the sustainability of a community. I think they're going to get better and better over time. I mean, I'm long DAOs. I have a lot of faith that this is the future of coordination and cooperation. Does that answer your question?
Partly, yes. We should definitely explore. Have you yourself worked with holacracy or sociocracy anywhere in your life?
No, you know, I haven't. And I have read, like armchair read about it, but I wouldn't say I've used it, if you know what I mean. Like some of the practices are like, oh, that's familiar, we do that, but I don't follow it as a methodology.
Gotcha. So for me, it's heaven, like when it really clicked, but it took us 2 years to actually get the hang of it. And last year we met the founder, Tom Thomason, who started Holacracy with Brian Robertson. And we had some chats with him, and he said like, well, you know, it takes 1 to 2 years for people to wash off the corporate bullshit. And then it takes another 1 to 2 years to actually learn to take ownership and leadership. And that's for all of us. So it doesn't matter if it's a DAO or Holacracy, whatever. We need to learn, you know, to distribute the authority amongst others, trust in the work of others, speak out, you know, raise our tensions and share that with others, and then get our needs met. Well, that's quite the transformation from, you know, having a boss and being an employee. And so I guess it just takes time also. And that's probably why it appears so messy in many places. Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading the interview. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just one short statement. I was going to say, I think it's a very good match for DAO as a organizational structure. Go ahead, Artem.
Yeah, I was reading the interview with Alana Irving, who's the founder of Open Collective. You know, she was also in Spiral, yeah, in this interview, I think it was to Divya Siddharth, who took the interview. Alana said that yeah, they are going through this exit to community process like right now, so that users of their platform will become like co-owners of Open Collective, and basically she thinks it could take like up to 5 years to build that like governance capacity, so that people would really learn how to, you know, like participatory budgeting and stuff like that. So I guess that's you know, it's not commons, you know, but it's employee-owned platform, and I guess, you know, it's like a spectrum, right? Like there's cooperatives, there's employee-owned businesses, there's commons, but I guess governance is something that unites all of that.
Can I raise
Okay.
another question? Is there time?
Yeah, we still have 7 minutes. If anybody else has also questions, please write it in the chat, or you could just turn on your microphone and ask your question
Of course.
by voice. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Do you think we can create a comment? Like, this is a big question, I know, and maybe it's unanswerable, but do you believe and think that we can create a commons for all of humanity and actually at some point treat the planet like commons? Or do you think it's like impossible because of the level of complexity, whatever reason? Like, what can you say about this?
What do you mean, all the planet? Like,
I mean that we live as one group of people that all own the planet's resources and have equal access to get our needs met, because we get our needs met through the resources of this planet. We have needs that are met through the physicality of this world. And at this moment, the right to access is way out.
I think that is highly improbable, but it doesn't mean we don't try to design in that direction. But I would have a hard time myself understanding how we could achieve something that ambitious.
It's like
With
community are not built from tools, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the whole planet, I think certain areas that's achievable. So, you know, I could see that happening in pockets of the planet. But for me, I mean, look, it's my own limitation and my own, you know, I don't know how I don't know, with all the cultures and all the languages and all the differences and all the, I don't know, but it'd be cool if we could.
Cool, fair enough. A good start is pockets, and connect the pockets and create something like a network state of people that live in the same frequency, that have the same level of consciousness, and that they start exchanging resources that are scarce in certain places. That's a great start if it's going to reach a planetary level.
There's also the human condition, right? There's greed, there's hunger for power, like that's here to stay. So I don't see that. I see that being a direct challenge to this, you know, utopic view, to this ideal, you know.
Yeah, I think it's possible. If I imagine myself not 50 years into the future, but so let's say 2000 years into the future, like a proper time span, and we continue our technological advancements and humanity continues to raise its consciousness, because we are definitely expanding our awareness of the complexity, the systems that we are in, more and more people starting to influence the systems that they're a part of, which is a definition of a higher state of consciousness, then it seems only logical that we are going to get to something like you see in Star Trek, where there's no more money, no more trade, no more state, and everybody has their needs met. It's like, unless we self-terminate, of course, as a species, then, you know, or we go back to the Stone Age. But anyway, that's very philosophical and very far into the future. We can stay more in here now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Tamara. It was a really pleasure listening your ideas and about your project.
Cool.
Please, everybody.
Thanks. I
please,
have to hop.
everybody, thanks.
It's a little late for me, so I'm going to hop, but have a great continuation of the conference.
Thank you.
Bye.